was just fed up. And I was sitting in my apartment in like shorts and a t-shirt, and my phone rang, and it was my manager. And she said, do you want to sing for Tom Pasatieri? And I said, no. And she said, well, you know, he'd really like to hear you, so you should go sing for him. Okay, when? Right now. I said, what? Right now? I'm in my shorts and my t-shirt, and I am not getting dressed to go do an audition. I am just not interested. And she said, look, he lives right around the corner from you. Just walk over. And I said, I'll walk over, but I'm not getting dressed. And she said, okay. It's your funeral, you know. So I grabbed my music and I walked out my door. And I was and I walked, and he's a block away. And he's 5th and West End.
No. He's on.
And I walk into the lobby and I ring the buzzer, and he lets me in, and then I go to the elevator and I go up to the 3rd floor, and I'm really in a mood. I don't want to do this audition. And I ring this bell, hold my music. I stand there. This is what, 35 years ago, whatever, 40 years ago. And his door opens, and I'm looking down. And I look down, and I see 2 feet in bunny slippers. With the big ears and and I look up, and he goes, hi. And I went, hi. And he said, come on in. And he was wearing shorts and a t-shirt and bunny slippers.
Bunny slippers. Yeah.
And I walked into his living room, and I walked out 6 hours later.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because we'd sung through every score in the place.
Absolutely.
He was sitting at the piano. And of course I got the job, and then my career started. But it was so funny that it was like, that's how I met him.
Yeah.
What role was that for?
Cinderella. We looked down, bunny slippers. He was running Atlanta.
Exactly. Yeah.
What year was that?
That was probably 78, 79 in there, 80.
Yeah.
So good.
Oh, good to see you.
Sweetheart.
Tag me, definitely, on that.
Yeah, I will definitely
Great.
do that. It was terrific.
Great.
So good to see you again.
Good to
Everybody.
see you.
Congratulations, everybody.
Happy birthday!
Bye, sweetheart.
Thanks for the kiss.
Nice to meet you.
Sweet.
Do you want to hunk up at the table with you? Oh, Lord. Anyway, questions for Joanna? Anybody? I know you've got 50 questions, but I have one from a person that left, which she specifically asked about doing sit-ups.
Interesting. In my opinion, it depends on how your body is designed. Okay. The one exercise that I don't think any singer should do is anything that involves bench pressing or weight lifting above the head, because what you don't want to do is develop these muscles. These are not any muscles for a singer to have. In terms of abdominal crunches and sit-ups, if you've got an abdomen that's very out of shape and very loose, then it's not a bad idea to get it in shape. But if you're in shape, you don't want to get it tight. Any career that you choose that is physically based, whatever it is, you've got to make certain accommodations for making that choice. You can't have it all, So so if you're a singer, there are certain things that you can't do. I mean, I have a friend who is a pianist, and he can't slice a bagel. he just will not slice the bagel. All right?
But
Now, I slice bagels all the time, and if I cut my hand, nothing's terrible's going to happen to me. But it could be the end of his career.
You've got a question
What
about
do you recommend for, are there exercises you would recommend for people that are older, that are having some difficulty with breath support and the line and all that?
Well, Pilates is, a great exercise for singers.
I don't know what that means, I'm sorry.
Pilates is a whole philosophy of work that you do on a machine. You lie down, and it works on your core. So it works on your abdominal core and going through your body. And it's not very traumatic at all. It's quite gentle, actually, but very, very good. And a lot of singers use Pilates.
Oh, yeah.
and a lot use yoga too.
Yeah, yoga's great. Oh, yeah.
Yoga is really good, but yoga, you have to sort of have a certain amount of strength and coordination to start. So if you're older, like I have enough trouble standing up, so yoga would not work well for me. But whereas Pilates is sort of like you're anchored.
What about biking or swimming or jumping rope or walking on a?
Yeah, well, swimming is very good, but swimming is good, but it's good for your general health. But for singing specifically, it's not.
Okay.
The thing about down here it wouldn't be a problem, but the thing about swimming up north is that so many people who join gyms and swim that they work out end up getting more colds.
Right.
Because you might dry your hair and you might dry your body, and then you wait until you feel a little warmer, and then you bundle up and you go out. But people don't realize that you don't dry your nose hairs and you don't dry your inside your ears. And you go out into cold weather and you are really susceptible to colds, which again, they're not life-threatening, but for a singer, they can diminish your income substantially.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Money, yeah.
I am very interested in the core and how strengthening that. How does strengthening that core? How can you apply that to the breath support? I know it really grounds you. I've felt that in some workouts I've been doing, and the stronger that gets,
Because a lot of support is from a very low place in your body, from a very low center of gravity, and it's really down. I mean, when you the support that we were talking about today involves muscles that are down across the abdomen, but there are even some singers that use muscles, the Kegel muscles and the sphincter muscles in the anus and stuff like that. So the stronger your core, and the more you can stand there and use those muscles, the more access to the breathing you have.
so it just stabilizes you
Yeah.
while you use those awkward muscles.
Good.
Well, you want to remember that tension radiates. And singing is not an untense experience. There's some parts of your body that have to work. It's not like lying in the sun. So if the body radiates tension from the source of its work, you want to get the source of your work as far away from here as you can. This is not the area you want to have the tension in. So the lower you can get your work to be, the freer this is.
And we're not talking bad singers. We're talking singers who had good long careers and didn't destroy their throats. And I don't mind saying it was Kiri Takano, but I've seen it on other people too. That they're singing away, and whether it's blood vessels or tendons start to pop on their neck, and I'm like, that always makes me uncomfortable to see. But I keep wondering what is causing that. It doesn't look like it should be that way. That looks tense, but they're obviously doing something right because they sang, 40 years or whatever.
No, I think actually it's a good question, and it depends on the person's complexion and where the person's capillaries and arteries are. In other words, if you go and you have blood taken, I've actually asked that question of medical people because I've had the same observation.
Right.
And if you go to the lab to have blood taken, there are people that get their blood taken very easily. You know, it's just like, boom, they find a vein, the vein's close to the skin, and they pump it, and it's like easy. And then there are people who are just as
Like me.
healthy and everything else, and they have to like dig. And like, this vein isn't working and I have to make another hole because I gotta use this vein. And, all right, it has to do with the veins and the capillaries here are all at different depths in the neck. And there's a different fat structure and a different skin structure. And some people have very, very veins that are very close to the surface and very little fat here. And they just bulge. They just bulge when they're making any kind of exertive effort, doing anything.
Right. I wasn't discussing anybody here.
Yeah.
It's
No,
not like,
no,
it's
no,
not
it
like I
doesn't-
saw this on somebody here.
Right.
It was
That's sort of a very delicate thing to answer because we all know that there have been some great singers that have broken all the rules of good technique. And then we all know there are some singers who are technically perfect who you wouldn't pay a dime to hear. So it's a somewhat subjective. And I would say that usually a good technique will hold you in good stead and lengthen your career and make it easier to sing, usually. But it's not a guarantee. There are some people who have great careers who don't necessarily sing in a textbook-like way. The voice teachers go, you know. And actually, what is the goal? I don't know. Is the goal to be a technically perfect singer or the goal to be a beautiful working singer? But I have known teachers who believe that performing interferes with learning how to sing. That your basic job is to learn how to sing. And then if you learn how to sing, you get to perform as the treat. And I don't feel that way at all. I feel that if you're a performer, you perform and you learn as you go. And you're gonna get better as you go, hopefully, if you keep studying and if you're intellectually curious. And there are gonna be some roles that are gonna be your piece of cake, and there are going to be some roles that you could study until you die, and you're still not going to be the best one at it anyway. So that's my personal philosophy. So when I look at a singer's technique, I don't get wowed either way.
Yeah.
Really, I just don't. I look at the product and what the product does for me, and assuming that the product really moves me, then of course I hope it's going to last because I want it to move me for a number of years. But otherwise, I don't really think about that much. Coming to me and you're paying me to give you technical information and technique, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
All right, that's my job. But if you said to me, is this going to give me a career? I would say absolutely not. This is not going to give you a career. You know, a career is up to you.
I have a question. What is your opinion on furthering education as far as schooling, like undergraduate, then graduate school, and so on and so forth?
You know, it's very interesting because my opinion is really changing on that. I used to feel that it was very important to go on to grad school, just because your voice doesn't mature during your period in undergrad. And most people in undergrad don't get the best teachers. Anyway, so I've always found that, but in this current operatic and economic environment, I'm finding that a lot of people are choosing not to go on to grad school because they don't want to get themselves more in debt when they're actually facing a future where they don't know if they're going to be able to earn a living at the craft. And I think that's a very valid concern.
Yeah, that's what I'm going through right now.
Yeah, and I think that's very valid. When I was hired to go teach, and I taught in a lot of colleges and universities and stuff, no one ever asked me if I graduated high school because my career spoke for what I did. You know, my CV spoke, or my teaching credentials spoke, or my singing credential, whatever the hell they were. Nowadays, they don't even look at you. You can't even get an interview without a doctoral.
It's pretty crazy, isn't it?
And most of these people that have the doctoral degrees that are getting the interview and therefore are going to go to school and teach you or your children or whatever have never been on stage in their lives. So basically, they don't have a clue what they're teaching you to do. I just look at it and I go, they don't know what they're doing. They don't know what it is to have a career. They don't know how to catch a plane and keep your voice in shape and get to rehearsal and sing with jet lag and, and have a cold and have to go out and do a performance. They know nothing, all right? So I don't care what they think of me. I know definitely what I think of them.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's just really clear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So to me, it's like, okay, whatever. I have told all my students, when you have to do your choral requirement, go in there, sing loud, don't blend, all right? Be uncooperative. I'm completely serious.
Okay.
You're not going to flunk the chorus as long as you show up, all right? And just do that. Don't try to make it anything that you want it to be. Don't try to get into the mood of it. Don't just go in and hunk.
Yeah.
All right? Because solo singers are not choral singers.
Thank you.
Right.
And solo temperaments are not choral temperaments.
Right.
Thank you. Yeah.
And that is just the way it is.
Maestro
Just
Trio
don't
tried-
try to make it that
Right.
is the cheapest thing to make students do and put their time in is a chorus. The most expensive thing to train people to do is to become solo artists. So the price per student, the student contact hours, because again, as an academic who's run a department, it has nothing to do with what's good for the student or
That's
what's
logic.
good
Yeah.
for the art.
Yep.
It's about how it fits financially.
Mhm.
And chorus is a very cheap course. Okay? So that's why you have to have chorus.
Without
They
us.
don't want the select 20 opera students. They don't care.
But-
Now, there was a time where they cared. Again, I've worked at Curtis. I've worked at AVA, which are fully scholarship schools. All right, and there was a time where that mattered, but we're not in that environment anymore.
Oh, really?
And it's one thing to sit and cry about it and bemoan that it's not there. It's another thing to just go,
It is. This
it's
is what
not
it is.
there.
Yeah.
So if I was a young singer, like you guys are, and I was thinking about if I wanted to earn my living at using my voice, if that was what my goal was, I would be thinking, which is what I tell my students all the time, you got to be political. All right? First of all, you can't not know your music. There is no room for that. I mean, seriously, it might sound unloving to say that, but there is just no room for that. And you have to look at who you know. You have to get to know the right people. You have to venture forth out of academia because academia is not going to give you the connections to the real world. The real world is smaller and smaller than it ever was. All right, so you could be your professor's favorite student, and it won't mean a bag of dirt. Okay? So, just like you could star in your college opera, and it won't mean a bag of dirt. If it's not the right role, all right? If it's not training you to do something the way you should be trained. So you've got to be really selfish. You've got to be really, really focused. And you've got to study the map. And you go, okay, I need the right connections. Well, here I am in Sarasota, Florida, which is not exactly the cultural capital of the world, but what are the connections I need? I have to ask people, and then I have to find a way to those people. And I have to find a way to those people in a charming, delightful way. And I don't think it's a matter of what school I go to. It's a matter of, again, how beautifully I sing and who I know. When you think about
About
it.
their salary.
Wow.
Mention who's one of your favorite singers.
Ferruccio Furlanetto.
Fine. Very good. Where do you go to college?
I don't know.
Did he go to college?
I don't know.
Okay, fine. Name one of your favorite singers.
Renee Fleming?
All right. Did she go to college?
No idea.
All right. Well, she
Probably.
did. Yeah, she did. But
But
do you know where?
No.
Okay.
Beverly Hills.
Okay. Did she go to college?
I don't think so.
Juan Diego.
Okay, tell me about Juan Diego Flores. Go ahead.
I don't know.
Well, you see,
Diana Damrau.
okay, so you see all these agonizing decisions you're making, that you're thinking about whether they're important or not. Here it is. Are they important?
No.
No, they're really not. Now, if you want a place to spend your time for the couple of years and you don't want to hit a big city, or you don't want to, you don't have the money and you can get a scholarship, whatever, sure. But it's really not that important. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it is very important that you sing beautifully.
So the
Because
other
that's
option
what's going
would
to
be-
make it or break it.
Oh, definitely.
And therefore, the other option would be for an 18-year-old. What would it be if they don't go even off to get their undergrad? Or would you recommend they at least try to get their undergrad? I mean, if they don't go to school after high school.
There are two schools of that I've heard. One, I've never heard a professional singer who I really respect tell me that the choice is to go to a great conservatory and then get a great master's degree. That's the choice I've never heard. What I've heard is get a good bachelor's degree from a good school in Romance language or in something that has nothing to do with music, but get a good education. Or go try out for a place like AVA and see if you can get in. And we've had some kids come to us at 18.
Mm-hmm.
I taught a soprano there who has a wonderful career that she came to me at 17. But I'm saying, the other thing you want to, I know for me, that when I got out of high school, I would have been not ready to get into any conservatory. Well, I got into it, but wouldn't be ready to go seriously study. And my voice, a mezzo, was a white elephant that didn't even sound like it could be decent until I was in my 20s. I mean, it was just horrible in my late teens and early 20s. So I would not have been one of those kids that could go to AVA and knock the pants off these people and get an early start. But nowadays, I think that there is not very much room for late bloomers anymore. That's the other part, that everything is so accelerated that that you sort of have to be pretty extraordinary pretty early.
Yeah.
Well, eventually you price yourself out of your own market, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because when you start out, you're young and you'll work for a relatively reasonable fee. Then as your career grows, you want more money. As you want more money, you get more expensive to hire. That means that either you're going to have to bring in the audience so it's worth them to hire you, or they're going to get somebody else who's young like you. Were. Is it Carol?
That's just,
What do they say? The levels of a singer career. Who is Carol Sparrow? Get me Carol Sparrow. Get me a Carol Sparrow type. Get me a young Carol Sparrow.
I resemble that remark.
Who is Carol Sparrow?
I just wanted to ask, what age nowadays is it? How young is young? How old is old now? Or a soprano?
A soprano. Yeah.
Because I know that's different.
Sopranos have to be ready the youngest.
The lighter ones.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I'm not talking about Verdi or Wagner.
Or Doretta.
We're talking about lyric sopranos, which is what most people are when they're young anyway. I would, it seems to me that if you don't have your career significantly started by the time you're in your late 20s to early 30s, that doesn't mean you're not going to have an occasional job, but you're not going to be able to earn your living at being a singer. Mezzos have about 5 more years, I would say.
That's nice. That's a relief.
Isn't it true though, sometimes it's
But again, we're talking about lyrics now.
Yeah.
If you're dramatic or you're growing into a dramatic, you have more time.
she knows
Okay.
more than I do.
Okay.
I just was curious because I hear what you're saying and I know you're really honest. And is it possible for a person that's a little older that's had a late development of the voice to be able to possibly have a career that's a soprano, or is it just totally out? Because the other thing is now technology has changed so much, and I know I've had major issues with people not even giving a chance because of technology and just didn't really have the voice. And now that I'm 52-ish, and it seems like my voice is better than it ever was for some odd reason. It's getting better. It's not, and I'm just like, I don't know, is it a possibility or is it just something that's not possible?
Well, it depends on what kind of career you're looking for.
Well, maybe
How would you define the career that you want?
oratorios. I'm not really that much into the opera scene, really, because I really can't move around on the stage, but I'm really looking at, the lead or the oratorios or the concertizing, that kind of thing.
Well, again, you get into years and years ago, there was a market for people who really loved concert work. That's what they wanted to do. That's what they loved doing. And they specialized in that. So they sang a lot of oratorio and a lot of concert work. Now, in general, the people that get hired to do that kind of work at levels that can sustain them are people that have operatic careers. There are very few people that make sustaining careers on the concert circuit now. There are some,
Yeah.
but
Nationally and internationally.
but they're very rare. So if you're talking about getting an occasional job and going out and doing a Messiah every year and then going out and doing
Creation.
whatever.
Elijah.
Locally, I don't think that age is going to stand in the way of a concert singer getting those gigs. But I think if you're thinking about doing it on a national basis, age would probably go into that.
Right.
See, again, but it's not specifically in the concert area. It's in the entire business now. Now that we've lost the companies of the level of City Opera, the feeder companies, the level companies that were what I call the national companies. There's regional, national, and international.
Right.
And the national companies were very important for the health of the opera business, because that's where everybody, teethed. We cut our teeth in those companies. And then many people went on to international companies, and many people just stayed at that national level and had great careers and made great livings, and were at every level what we all call very successful professional singers. As those companies have either cut back dramatically on their seasons or in some cases closed, that impacts very dramatically on what the young singers of your generation have to think about. Because most of us would not be able to walk directly into the Met, no matter how good we were. You did your time and learned your craft in places like City Opera, and then you survived that, and you were in the right place at the right time. Very often you got the opportunity to go on. But now that that is no longer a possibility, I don't know what's going to come up to fill its place, because it just happened.
There's a void. There's a huge void there.
And but something will happen. Something will come up. Nature abhors a vacuum, so eventually.
And you do still have the Cincinnati Opera too.
Yeah, listen, it's not. Having a career is not for the faint of heart. And I have said this so many times. If I can talk you out of it, I should. If there is any way you can be convinced that you should go do something else, you should go do something else. Because the only reason to do this is because you would die without it.
Right. Passion.
All right? And if you know that about yourself, then it doesn't matter how impossible the odds are, because you're going to go for it anyway. That is to me really important. That it defies being rational to do this. You must be unreasonable to do this, and if you're not, don't do it.
Gotta have grit too.
All right.
Major grit.
And so if you know that the only thing that you want to do with your life is this, and that you would not be happy doing anything else, then it's not a choice.
Yeah.
It's a calling. And it doesn't matter what happens. It's important that you evaluate what the climate is so you know how to maneuver in it. But it's not going to affect whether you do it or not. So you can look at it very truthfully and just eye it and go, this is what I'm going to do. Or I'm going to die trying. I go back so far that the horses were coming down. I go back so far that I was starting to sing during the time when they were putting in the first cash machines. There was a time when banks didn't have cash machines, and you had to go to the bank and get your money out for the weekend because you couldn't get it.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness.
And the first
When was that?
I know, and the first bank in the whole world that put cash machines out on the city streets, on any city, was Citibank. Okay? And they were these separate kiosks all around the city. And you dip your card in and and all of a sudden this money would come out. Well, if it didn't come out, you picked up the phone and there was a voice on the other end. Citibank, may I help you? And the chances are it was me.
Oh, really?
And they had a bank of us, and we were all performers. And our job was to keep these telephones manned 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And they didn't care who did it, as long as it was done. So everybody at the Citibank, it was on 42nd and Lex, every single person at this bank was a performer.
Beautiful voices.
And if you got an audition and you couldn't be there, you'd say to your friend, would you cover for me? And they'd come in and take your shift, and then you'd take their shift. So you could do auditions, you could go to rehearsals, you could do whatever you wanted. And it was like the place that opera singers survived. It was like full of young opera singers. And I didn't leave that job until I made my City Opera debut. And Citibank was one of the leading sponsors of City Opera. So when I actually left Citibank to go to City Opera, they made me a big party with a big banner going from Citibank to City Opera.
That's cool.
That's so cool. Oh my God. I think we would stay with you all night.
Say, are we done? If we're done, we're done.
Aw, you are
Thank you.
just a bevy of joy, knowledge, personality, warmth. Give me some more. What's the more?
Tremendous information and
Knowledge.
insight. Yeah, you know the
Thank you.
mechanism. and
It
you know
was
the
my
business.
pleasure. And if any of you have any more questions or concerns, I'm reachable at the University of Hartford. You know, it's very interesting because that's one of the things we're doing this year at Hart, which we have not done before. I realized that as a mezzo, very often undergrad for mezzo means that you're playing the maid, you're picking the soprano up off the floor in opera scenes or whatever, and you rarely get to win competitions because the voice isn't ready to sing Delilah or any of those things. And frankly, you can't get up and compete with Voi che sapete when the soprano's standing up there singing Rondine. So I said, we should have a few master classes specifically for what mezzos need. Mezzos need two things. They need to learn how to play boys, and they need to learn how to play sexpots. All right? Those are the two things mezzos need. And so we're going to do that this year.
That's great.
We're actually having two classes. One for playing boys, for how you put that in your body and how you move like a
Wow, I wish I could come.
I don't know who's teaching me yet. I haven't figured that out. But, and then we're going to have one for how you do a role like Carmen.
Anyway, I love fun.
Well, anyway, it was my pleasure. You were delightful. Thank you all.
Thank you all.